Yeah. Wait, should we record this? Because I saw this on my feed and I was going to leave a comment and I saw your comment on it. And then I
Yeah.
didn't even end up leaving my comment.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay.
When you start your business, no one ever prepares you for what's in store. So finding someone else who just gets it is sometimes the thing that can keep you pushing towards those big vision board business goals.
We're turning our Zoom coffee chats into a weekly unfiltered podcast. You always wanted to record them and repurpose them for content anyways. And that's on being a social media manager.
I'm Jessica Sheehy.
And I'm Madeline Daigan. And this is
hashtag
managed. I think it's perfect.
I like it. I like it. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Hashtag Managed. I'm super excited to introduce to you this week's guest, Krista. Welcome to the Hashtag Managed podcast.
Yay, I'm here. I'm happy.
Perfect. We're so happy to have you. And I just know we're all going to have the best conversation over the next hour that we're together. Do you want to start us off, Krista, by sharing a little bit more about you and your journey as a copywriter?
Sure. Yeah, so I've been a copywriter for 7+ years is how I write it. And then every year it'll be 8+, 9+, whatever. Now I do bring in a very small design team of handpicked designers to bring my website copy work to life for my clients so they can get like a fully managed experience. So we're a little bit bigger than just copy now, but my role is definitely messaging and strategy and all of that.
Awesome. I know we're going to dive into all of that today. I'm so excited. Messaging is like one of my favorite like buzzwords. We've been talking about a lot of things here on the podcast, but internally we've gone through for both the podcast and for our social media agency rebrands, and we're marketers, so of course we're thinking about the pretty visuals and everything that goes with that, but we've also had a lot of really fun like revelations almost like in updating our messaging that was just severely outdated. So I'm excited. I feel like I'm gonna learn so much during this episode too.
Ooh, I want to hear about that if that comes up
in
the conversation. Yeah. Let's talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Okay, before we get into the meat of today's topic, we're going to kick off with some rapid fire questions. So, what is your favorite thing about being a marketer / copywriter?
It is definitely like the feeling when you are finishing a project and you're like, damn, I want this. Like you're like selling yourself into the program. Like I've hired some of my clients and like most of the others are on my like list of like to hire when I get to this need or whatever. But that's really fun.
Yes. Okay, a celebrity you'd love to meet.
Yeah, I think I shared this in my like prep with you guys, but do you guys know who Rebecca Yarros is?
I feel like I've heard
You're not on Book Talk. Okay.
She's an author, right?
She's an author, yeah. So she's the writer of this like massively popular romantic fantasy series called Fourth Wing, which I had never read anything like it before.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. I was like, why do I know that name but couldn't, like, I read like the Court of Thorns and Roses, but and like everybody was like, that's the intro, like then you go to the Fourth Wing type stuff. So yes.
Okay,
yes.
I did the opposite just because a friend was so into this genre and then she recommended starting here. And I loved it. But then, so I read 3 books are out. I read them all in like 2 weeks. And then at the end, I had so many questions. So I would just love to meet her to like ask her these questions. And of course, she probably wouldn't answer them because she got to keep the buzz for the 4th book. But I still want to ask.
Yes. Okay, and then something you can't live without.
So probably it's like a ritual that I do every day. So every morning, me, my boyfriend, and my dog, who is this like pit bull Great Dane, like big ass dog, we go walk to our local coffee shop for, I get a matcha latte, and this is just like, I can't have a good day if we don't do this. So that's what I can't live without.
I feel you on that. And I'm so jealous that you have a coffee shop you can walk to grab this, because I feel like on the flip side, I'm always trying to, I guess, quote unquote, find the best in my area. I mean, I already know like my top like favorites that I've tried so far, but man, nothing worse than trying a matcha and it's bottom shelf. Let's just say that.
Oh God, don't get me started. Like if there's not an unsweet option, I'm not trying it. I don't know, because so many coffee shops will do like a matcha, but it's like the Starbucks version, so it's extremely sweet, like a flat soda level of sweet sugar. Like it's disgusting. I don't know who started this or why it's a thing, but
agreed.
No.
I'm right there with you. I'm at the level of like matcha snob that you're at. Like this, speaking my language. Like
yes.
Okay, and then in an alternate universe, what would your job be?
I would probably be a veterinarian. This was what I wanted to be growing up until probably mid-high school when I decided I was scared of blood and stuff, so it wasn't the right move. But I love animals and helping them, and so.
Yeah. Okay, and then the last question, what is your favorite brand?
Okay, so this was the hardest for me because I am kind of brand agnostic. Like I'm not somebody who has like a lot of loyalty to brands. And I also buy a lot of like vintage stuff, and like I'm really into thrifting and stuff like that. So when I was thinking about like what I actually buy brand wise, it would probably be like vintage Levi's type of stuff. Like I love like vintage Levi's overalls and obviously the denim.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Awesome. I feel like outside of like marketing, I feel like we would have like the most fun weekend. Krista, we were all sharing like where we're all from, and Krista being based in LA and Maddie and I in Charleston. Like, I don't know, we could do a really fun LA weekend or a really fun Charleston weekend full of matcha, thrifting, talking about marketing in between. So I feel like that itinerary really just filled itself up. But okay, like we talked about at the start of the show, we're gonna dive into some really good conversation around, of course, we're going to ask all the copy and messaging questions that we know you guys are dying to know, and also we're dying to know from Krista as well. So I'll kick us off with our first question and we can get into it. Krista, why do you think so many service providers unintentionally attract low paying or DIY clients?
Yeah, so I think there's a slight difference between DIY and low paying clients. So let's start with the low paying side. So this is usually a client who's low paying because they are price shopping. They're looking for somebody to do what they need to get done, but at the lowest price possible. So these are clients that you might meet with them, or they like inquire, but then they like don't go with you because they're like, oh, I found actually someone was able to offer me a better rate, like. So that's how I would define like a low paying client versus a high paying client is somebody who is intentionally looking for the best or the right fit. And it's not like money's no object or anything crazy like that, but it's more like I'm willing to pay for the best. So I'm not just going to choose whoever's the lowest paying. Like, yeah. So if you're attracting a lot of like race to the bottom type of clients, I think it's usually when your content, like whether it's on your website, like with what I do, or more in your content, like on social media, it's a lot of selling people on the thing that you do. So it's like a lot of content of like, here's why you need a social media manager. Like, here's why engagement services are important. Like, here's what's going to change when we stop doing it yourself and start working with somebody, instead of selling people like on why you specifically need to be the person to do it for them, like for that specific type of client or whatever specific outcome they're looking to achieve. So another way to put this is like you want to sell your expertise, not the execution. Because if you're mostly just selling like, I'm going to do it for you, whatever, like people are going to be able to find somebody else. We live in a global economy who can do it for them cheaper if that's what they're looking for, right? But if you're selling people on your expertise, you don't really have like a competitor in that sense. Like it's like you're making yourself kind of this category of one, where if somebody is sold on that, like there is no other option for them. They want you, right? And so they're gonna like make it happen. Yeah.
I love that answer so much, because I feel like it's getting to the root to of like, how do you different, like there's so many social media managers in this world, just like there are copywriters, like in any industry there's thousands, millions, and it's just like we all technically, I feel like, have the same message, right? Like we want to help whoever. And so anyway, so can you share the most common messaging mistake you see?
Yeah. Yeah, so part of it's what I just said, if we're talking about like general messaging. There's another one that I see a lot, like specifically with what I do with on your website, that could be interesting to talk about, which is this idea that sometimes you think your website has to do what all of your marketing does, which is speak to the entire like awareness funnel. So we're all marketers. We understand what awareness funnels are, right? Like unaware, problemware, solutionware at the very basic. So a lot of times I see people where they're doing a lot of like, okay, we're starting with like explaining on my website, like why you need a blah, blah, blah. Like sometimes it's even like, what is this? Like sometimes I even see people going like into the totally unaware zone where they'll be like, here's what a social media manager is. Like sometimes this is not super common, but it is really common for people to be like, you know, speaking to somebody who is not yet problem aware. So it's a lot of convincing about like, here is why you need this. And then at the very bottom, there's like a pivot into like, hey, I'm Krista and I'm the solution for you, right? And that's kind of what it is. And that ratio kind of needs to be flipped, because if you think about, it needs to be flipped in the sense that most of your website should be speaking to the bottom of funnel client. So somebody who is solution aware and who is looking to hire somebody. So they already know they need the thing that you do. They already know what their problems are, what their outcomes they're looking for. Now they're looking for the right person for them, or for the best, or however they want to like explain that, or for like the best like fit or whatever. So most of your website needs to be talking to that client. So it's a lot about like, you can do a tiny bit of like pain point stuff, but it needs to be tight. And then like a lot about, here is my process and why it's beneficial to you. Like, here is why my expertise is specific for this type of client that I'm serving. Yeah, was that clear? I feel like I rambled a tiny bit there, but
no, I followed you from start to finish, and I'm like nodding my head like that's perfect. One thing I want to bring up that reminds me, because we hear so many, we do a segment, you know, when it's just podcasts with Maddie and myself on it, that we call the water cooler. And I think one thing that we bring up all the time is, again, this is just kind of, you know, feedback and venting sessions and questions and whatnot from our community. And the one thing that they're always thinking about is, how do I share my value as a social media manager? And to me, I think that this is one of the key solutions that they can switch into doing, because one thing that we see so often also within these, you know, water cooler segments and in our Facebook group is people are so focused on trying to stand apart from the competition. And like we've all said, there's a lot of service providers. If someone is, you know, ready to invest and ready to hire a social media manager, they're looking for the social media manager for them, kind of reiterate like the point you made earlier. But a lot of times these social media managers are so focused on not only their marketing content, but their website content as well, with listing out here's my packages, package 1, package 2, package 3, here's what's in them. And typically the only thing that they're kind of explaining in their messaging is the difference from package 1 to 2 to 3. But I think what kind of, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, Krista, but the point you're making is, what makes you, or, you know, Maddie versus Jessica, the two social media managers that maybe client A is looking to hire, who have very similar pricing, probably similar packages as well, because it's just how it works. There's a certain number of deliverables that most social media managers give. But what's the difference? You know, what's Jessica's process or experience, or what is she bringing to my project versus what Maddie's bringing? Is that kind of the missing piece that you feel like oftentimes could like affect service providers in terms of like how they're talking about what they're doing and just that messaging gap?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I see that all the time. And I think what you're talking about is like almost treating your website like a menu or like a product shelf, like a lot of like commodifying what you do, where it's just like a lot of, here is what you get, like here are the inclusions, price, like add to cart kind of vibe. And I think a lot of that is like almost like a carryover from the online course world that dominates online business, at least for like a decade. And that's how you kind of sell courses, especially like lower cost courses. But with things like what you guys do, like most and most of my clients, even in other fields too, it's like, it's a high touch partnership. Like trusting somebody to run your social media or do your social media strategy even is like pretty intimate. Like that is like, they need to trust you. They need to know that you're going to get them. Yeah, so it's a lot. It's the selling why you, not why this. That's something I say a lot. And it's tricky. I'm not going to say it's easy. There's a reason that like most people don't get it right, but there's huge opportunity there if you can do some deep thinking and figure out like who am I really talking to, and why is my process or my experience, my way of doing things, like really move the needle for them specifically.
Yeah, and like I alluded to, like and I guess because perfect example for this, we recently went through a rebranding for our social media agency, and it was about 3 years since we had done a previous rebrand, and we've been in business for around 6 years. It'll be 7 at the end of this year, and as you know, kind of looking at the past 3 years, and you know, we've had episodes, and I won't go too deep into why we did the rebrand, but there's many pros as to why we chose to do it. But one of the things behind that was more so going beyond the visuals in terms of, yes, our brand identity really needed to shift because we have really grown and evolved as an agency. But the other things within that rebrand that have happened and are still happening is the biggest thing is messaging, but also our processes have really changed. And that was one thing where I felt like a lot of, and it was just kind of like a light bulb moment almost, where I'm thinking about a lot of like leads who are coming in, inquiring about working with us, and they're asking a lot of questions that I had already thought we've been answering. Like I thought these questions were answered on our website or on our content. And a lot of it was about the process, like what the process looks like, because we are a team of 5. And so we all offer like very unique, specific roles, like in the agency for our clients. And beyond that, we are an agency. And so comparing our business to a solopreneur, if you will, it's a very different high touch from them signing on not only the cost of like their contract or their project scope, but like our onboarding process is just very robust. And that's one thing that has definitely evolved over the 6+ years. You know, how we can go from new client that we've never worked with, or a lot of times to new industry that we have no idea what they even do. So we're automatically kind of stepping into that more of like an expert role. But how we create the strategy and how we go about managing the account, it's so much more than like pieces of deliverables on a menu. Our clients who are hiring us, in my perspective and kind of internally conversations we've had, I don't think they care how many reels we're posting per week, how many carousels we're doing per week, how many stories we're sharing. They don't care. Like that is not the thing that is going to get them to hire us. And so that's one thing that, again, I don't want to go too off into that specific tangent, but our pricing has certainly changed because we've gotten away from this super specific deliverable model into like a more of a retainer, like an actual agency would charge. And with that, it gives our team, one, way more time and resources to be able to do what we know how to do, which is to fully manage this account. It also gives us more freedom to get more ROI for our clients because we're not pigeonholed by a client who was like, hey, I want to take off this and take off this, and you know, now your project's trimmed by like $1,000. But all that to say, long story long, is that you know, looking at our messaging and just thinking about it from the perspective of kind of taking what I know from client inquiries and sales calls and putting that into our own messaging of, okay, we're not answering this on our website. We're not being super clear at what makes Social Savvy as an agency different from a solopreneur and different from, you know, the other social media agency down the street here in Charleston. So I think just that, again, one thing we've talked a lot about on the podcast is rebrands, but most people just think logos and brand identity. And yes, that's super important. Not to downplay that at all, but messaging is also just as important and I think should be looked at as well, like during a rebrand.
Yeah. Oh, you said so many good things there. Yeah, and I would have loved to have been like a fly on the wall during those conversations. But yeah, you're echoing a lot of what my clients realize, like this idea of like, I call them premium clients, we can call them high paying clients, whatever you want. Yeah, they tend to want like a thought partner, like, and an expert, like somebody who's going to tell them what they need. And so when you do this thing of like itemized stuff where you're like, here's all the things, you are inviting people to become the expert and like pick off what they need based on price or like based on what they think they need. I don't know, because they saw a YouTube video that told them they need to post on Reels every day or whatever. Like, you want them to come in being like, I need you to tell me what you want to do, and then I need you to do it really, really well for me. And another thing I want to touch on that you said, which is this idea of like explaining why you're different from these other like business models, like a solopreneur versus like, I would say maybe like a big enterprise marketing company that like does social media too, right? Like I'm sort of in that space as well. Like we are a very small team. Like it's me working on your project. It's me, my SEO consultant, and one handpicked designer, right? So it's very small, but it's also a different experience from working with those three people separately as contractors. And it's also a different experience from working with like a marketing agency who has an in-house team that's working on like 12 projects at once. So it is, yes, explaining why that's different, but I would say also like calling in the type of person that it is best for. Like you guys know which client that's best for. Like who is better suited with a solopreneur? Somebody is, right? Like who is better suited with a bigger agency? Like if they have like 1 million accounts or something, right? Like maybe you guys can handle it. I don't know. But like, so it's also like dialing in your messaging throughout everything, not just in one little section that's like, hey, here's why I'm different, or like, here's what makes this different from these other things, but like just everything in service of your client, like your specific client.
Yeah. Okay. This is good. I'm gonna keep this moving.
So
I'm gonna keep going on this one thing. And everything's gonna be like, okay, Jessica, why are we talking about this for 40 minutes? But okay, this next question, I'd love to know if you have any specific examples of what could work for this. That our audience could take away, but are there any specific messaging swaps that people can make to elevate their copy, elevate their messaging, like any language to avoid or language to use?
Yes. Less about like specific words, but more about like, for lack of a better word, like specific vibes to stay, or like themes to stay away from. So one of them is this theme of what I do saves you time, because it absolutely does for all of my clients. Like, you know, you are saving your clients time, but that's not really the reason that you're able to charge like a premium amount. Because when you do something like that, like I'll give you an example. We worked with this like incredible email marketing company last year to do their website and messaging. And they came in like kind of aware that their messaging was off because it was speaking to this audience of people who just like didn't have time to do their email marketing. So they need like an expert partner they can trust. And that's kind of what it said. But really that sort of downgrades what they're doing to the category of like a VA almost, because it's like, outsource this because you don't have the time. Like that's something like a virtual assistant does. I'm not like shitting on virtual assistants at all. I'm just saying it's like a different, like you expect to pay a virtual assistant a lot less than you would pay like a, you know, thousands of dollars a month retainer with an email marketing agency. So it had to elevate that that core like outcome that you're selling, less about like the time and more about like what they're actually getting, which time can be a part of that, but it was more about like profitability, like making this massive asset in your business profitable for you, like untangling all of this, making it work for you, optimizing it, essentially boiling down to something I've said before, which is making sure you're selling your expertise and not just the execution. So that would be a theme to just like do a little check through your content and make sure you're not doing a ton of that. You can do a little bit of it. Like you can say like make a post or something about how much time you save your clients, but I wouldn't make it your massive thing.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up too, because I feel like, again, and you guys listening know I'm not calling anyone out here, but I think that's one thing that most people lean into. And by people, I mean, I'm thinking of our social media marketers and managers and even social media agency owners in our community is that they're so focused on the time, the saving of the time. And I think, of course, there, even as a business owner, there's, we're coming out of tax season. So I'm thinking about different things that even this tax season that went on. And I'm like, man, like there's, I still hire people for this and that for all things business finances. But I'm like still thinking about my time. So that's, yeah, people are going to hire and outsource different things to get time back in their schedule. I think that's such a given, but I'm glad you brought that up as a theme to consider to, avoid maybe, or just to kind of not downplay it a little bit compared to others.
Totally. Yeah.
Listen up, social media managers, freelancers, and online business bosses. If you're still out here trying to Google your way to success, it's time for an upgrade. The #Manage Collective is a free Facebook group where we ditch the fluff and get real about what actually works in social media management, community, coaching, and resources. Because your ideal clients don't just magically find you. We're a group of 20,000 plus social media managers, and it's absolutely free to join us. So what are you waiting on? Join now at #manage.com/group. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you made it this far, I think we've officially become internet besties. You can always call into the # hotline and say hello, leave a review, or ask your burning questions.
Make sure you follow, rate, and review the podcast wherever you're listening from. Subscribe to the Social Club newsletter for our weekly email, and shoot us a DM over at #Manage on Instagram, letting us know what your biggest takeaway was from this episode.